You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anisa, and Paroma.
Hi, I'm Anisa.
I'm Paroma, and today we are joined by.
Say hi.
Hi, I'm Zaynab.
My sister Zaynab is joining us. She's actually the one who got me to watch Someday or One Day. And now we tried out the new K-drama version, which we have plenty of thoughts on. But so we thought it would be fun to have Zaynab on to give her thoughts about A Time Called You.
Welcome!
Hi, thanks for having me.
You last joined us for Extraordinary Attorney Woo, right?
Yes, yeah, that was the last one. That was a while ago, though.
A while back.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back.
Okay, before we jump in, guys, we have a spoilery review discussion on Someday or One Day with K Fangirl that we are planning to release next week. And we originally recorded that anticipating that A Time Called You would be released like on a weekly schedule. So we wanted to get Someday or One Day out like by the time the second week of airing was happening. But then they dropped all 12 episodes together. So our schedule is a bit up and down here, but so next week tune in for a spoilery conversation on Someday or One Day. And now let's get back to A Time Called You.
Yeah, so before we get into A Time Called You, Zaynab, I wanted to, since we have all talked about what we feel about Someday or One Day, like what are your general thoughts about Someday or One Day?
Yeah, I really love it. It's a great drama. I definitely cried through the whole thing. Just like a really unique storyline. Yeah. I feel like it's very difficult to talk about without spoiling the story, but it's just like such an interesting story, great acting, performance, like everything about it, the soundtrack, everything is so good and like very good.
You're right, it's hard to talk about.
Right?
Soundtrack, yes.
It is.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Like it sticks in your head even when you're listening to, because the soundtrack plays like a pivotal role.
It's very important.
In the drama, and you hear it a lot, and you're like the 100th time you're hearing it, it should be getting annoying by now. You're very familiar with it, but because it's so go on, Zaynab.
Yeah, like I watched it like 3 years ago and I still have the OST in my, like it comes, I still listen to it. Yeah, so
They
very.
put effort into creating that. Like it's still a earworm, and that's amazing. Not so for A Time Called You, though.
Yeah, so Zaynab and I watched the first 2 episodes. Borma, you said you kind of watched the whole thing, sort of fast forwarding.
Yeah, I watched the first episode like at a normal pace. From episode 2, I started skipping forward because I could recognize the scenes. Like before I went in, I heard that they had changed the plot and somewhat, and I was excited by that because an adaptation that they make their own by making changes. Even if the audience who's familiar with the original material might not be happy with the changes, at least change means that you're doing something with it that's your own. You're adding your own creative touches to it. So I went in with that expectation, but the changes weren't really plot related. The changes were more, we'll get into that. But yeah, so from the second episode onwards, I started skipping forward a lot. I was going from main event to main event, all of which I recognized. And then I watched the entire last episode just because I wanted to see how they did it pacing wise. And yeah, so here I am.
So I want to get Zaynab's thoughts on this remake first. Zaynab, what did you think?
It was pretty mid. Was it? Yeah, it wasn't great. I feel like a lot of the scenes were almost exactly the same, like beat for beat. But it just wasn't giving the same feelings. It was just kind of giving like very empty. Yeah.
That's actually interesting you say it that way. So I was gonna bring this up a little later, but so we were talking about this on Twitter. I've been tweeting nonstop about my feelings. And anyway, so in some of the replies, I've had a couple of people use exactly the same words for A Time Called You, that it felt empty. Like the scenes were happening, things were all there, but somehow it just felt like
Yeah.
the tension wasn't there, the
Yeah.
feelings weren't there.
We were talking about it last night, but it's like somebody watched Someday or One Day and was like, let's make a play. So they like wrote down all the dialogue and then they're just like reciting the dialogue. They're just in a play, like a high school, not even a high school play. They're just reciting the dialogue and it just feels so like awkward.
Very rote. Like the
Yeah.
actors don't feel like, they don't seem like they're feeling. And let's talk about the actors. So Jeon Yo-bin and An Hyo-sup, I've loved them both a lot in many things. Jeon Yo-bin more than An Hyo-sup. An Hyo-sup is not, I don't think he's as good of an actor as she is, but still, like, he's been good. We've loved him in some stuff, but I don't think they're cast well. They don't have any chemistry. They don't suit these roles, and also, I wonder if it's partly that they've been directed very strangely, because I don't they don't they even like the way that Jeon Yo-bin says her dialogue, it's very strange and like stilted, and it's very off, like in a way that I've never seen from her in her performances. I mean, she has an iconic performance of a woman who's grieving in one of her previous dramas, and she was so good in that. So it's not like she can't do it.
Be melodramatic.
Yeah, or mellow, also known as Mellow is My Nature. So like, I don't know. It's just really not.
I really think the problem was with directing, because I noticed this especially in the final episode, which we'll get into in the spoiler section of the thing. We are currently in the non-spoiler section, guys. You can see Jeon Yo-bin trying, but the edits don't help. And in K-dramas like these, the edits are largely in the hands of the director. This is not something that, like, editorial choices aren't independently made by an editor so much. And its scenes are really weirdly paced. Like, the reaction shots are much slower. So it feels like time stretches out when things should be moving quickly. And when things should slow down, they just cut to the next scene. And you're like, I had no time to process what just happened. None of which really helps the actors really get into and like immerse in their characters. It really feels like they took a drama that should have been shot over, I don't know, I'm just giving you a random estimate, something like maybe this drama should have taken like 2 months or 3 months to shoot, and maybe they did it in like 10 days. That's how it feels to me. They went from shot to shot to shot to shot to shot. Like a shot that probably should have taken 5 takes was given just 1 because they were in a hurry to get to the next shot. I'm not saying that's actually how it happened. I'm saying this is how amateurish the performance feels.
I think also, and it's, I mean, I watched Someday or One Day very recently. Like, it's only been a few weeks since I watched it for the first time. So I think one of the things that really struck me is, the first couple of episodes are really setting you up to understand the heroine's state of mind and where she's at and her current life. And I mean, to be fair, Someday or One Day does start slow. And I did kind of struggle through getting through episode 1 but I knew that like it was such a well-loved drama. And I was like, okay, even though I'm really confused and I'm not feeling it yet, like, let me just give it a chance. Which is why, even though I hated episode 1, I was like, we should probably watch episode 2 of this just to be fair.
You hated it.
I hated episode 1 of A Time Called You.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
but I was like, I also didn't really love the episode 1 of Someday or One Day. So
Yeah,
let me give it
yeah.
a chance. But I think what it did do very effectively was actually give you an idea of like who this person is, what she's going through. You have the whole scene of like her coworkers kind of explaining what's happening with her and what kind of mental state she's in. You don't have any of that. Instead, you're like just jumping ahead to all these plot points that feel shoehorned in and very like there's no subtlety. There's no subtlety, and the show doesn't feel like it has faith in the audience's intelligence, and their ability to pick up on like nonverbal cues. So everything is stated plainly and like I think you said this really well in I think it was one of your tweets, or maybe in the group chat, Parma, is like all the subtext has become text. And it's just so everything is so on the nose. Like some of these things are so much more effective if you like show instead of telling, but everything is just tell. And it's really sad because I mean, talk about adaptations, right? Zaynab, you and I were talking about this yesterday. There has to be a reason for you to do a remake, apart from I mean, obviously there's a reason of it was popular, so let's remake it because we'll make a lot of money. But
Get that cash cow.
Yeah, exactly. But apart from that, right? Like,
yeah,
you should be doing something different. You should be doing something creative, or like filling in a gap that the original missed. There was no gap and there was nothing missing. So if they weren't going to do something like dramatically different and very interesting with this one, why does it exist? You know?
I found this tweet from Joanna Beveridge really pertinent here, so I'm going to read that out from at JM Beveridge. A big difference between the two was the runtime. Someday or One Day was 15 hours, 25 minutes, 15 hours, 25 minutes, excluding the movie, and A Time Called You was 12 hours, 5 minutes. The K-drama version suffered due to this because a lot of the magic in Someday or One Day occurred when we sat in the character's pain or joy.
Yeah.
Which is really true. You got no time to process any of the emotions in the drama. Thus, it felt like they watched Someday or One Day, the series, and were like, there are all of these scenes that do nothing. There is no movement, and we should just take them out and make it shorter. And this is one of those times where the episode count being 12 is not like
a good thing.
Thing.
Yeah, because we talked about that last night when we finished episode 2, and you were like, I feel like it's moving much faster than the original drama. And I actually went back and checked, and like they hit that same plot point at the end of episode 2 in the Taiwanese drama, but like the runtime was longer, so they had so much more time to kind of like in those slower moments establish the characters. I think they spent a lot more time with the main character and like setting up who she is, setting up her personality, whereas in A Time Called You, I just didn't feel like I knew her at the end of the 2 episodes. She wasn't someone that like I related with or could understand where she was coming from, understand her feelings. Like I wouldn't say that she's like the most likable I think it's like less about you just want to know who they are as a character, and I feel like A Time Called You didn't really set it up that well in the 2 episodes that we watched.
And that like skipping over all those character moments and those quiet moments, which was it Joanna Beveridge?
Yeah.
Joanna said it so well, of like sitting with those characters in their moments of pain and joy. Like it's very I feel like the people who are remaking this are seeing it as a series of plot points rather than a drama that has a really intricate and interconnected plot. I mean, yes, it's a mystery. It's a time travel drama. There's a lot of twists and turns, and that's like really thrilling. But what makes it so like gripping and immersive and powerful, like emotionally, is that the characters are also very important, and like who they are as people has a huge impact on what actually happens in this show, right? And so if you're not showing their character traits and their personalities and their motivations, the drama is not going to make sense, because it's all about the choices that these people make and how that impacts the plot. The plot isn't just like this like a checklist of things that you have to tick off to get to the next thing. And I think part of it is also like there's this K-drama like romance filter instead of where like instead it should be like in some scenes it should be a depression filter, not this like pink K-drama like spring and youth and bloom kind of
felt like
vibe.
An ad, like a really
shiny.
long ad.
Yeah.
For so an example to illustrate what we're talking about, you have Johnny Bin playing basically two characters. To some mildly spoil things. And the character in the older time period, her personality is best understood through the perspective of another character. Like their observation of her is really crucial to understanding her. But no time is given to their perspective. And that is really sad, because it not only erases this other perspective, but also John Eubin's like the older character's personality just doesn't get depth. So a lot of really hard-hitting moments that happen later in the drama that really emotionally gut you don't have the same resonance, because you don't know this character that well. You haven't lived with her grief, her loneliness. You haven't felt any of it, because none of the characters have felt any of it. So it's yeah, that was a hard miss.
They don't feel like real people, the characters. And it's a shame, because in Someday or One Day, that was one of my favorite things, is how you feel like you know every single one of these people, even the side characters, Everyone was so wonderfully drawn.
You know how Alasco and Greg Sue's characters, when you had, hold on, what was her name? I keep forgetting. Yushuan, yeah. Yushuan, when Huang Yushuan would talk about her boyfriend, like her boyfriend who passed away, that is how the story starts. She is a character who is living in grief because this wonderful relationship she had is no longer there. Initially, you're like, did they just break up? Because so in Someday or One Day, they aren't very explicit immediately in the first episode. So you're like, what is happening? Maybe they just broke up? Because she also treats it like they have been separated, not as if, he's passed away. But then as the story slowly builds, you see how deep her grief is. That depth of grief, you don't get it unless the romance is that good. You know what I mean? Like, not just the chemistry, not just like the heat between the characters, but like the constancy. You want to see a romance that like in this kind of story, you need to see something where characters will do things that make them go through time to reach each other. And they will make decisions that are maybe selfish and affect other people's life adversely, but they don't think about those things. Because the pull towards each other is so magnetic. And yeah, none of that came across. Everything felt like everybody was just floating on water. Things were just happening. They were just sliding on. And that urgency that comes from like desperation, it was completely absent.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those dramas where you really need to buy this epic love story between the leads, because if you don't buy that, the whole thing kind of collapses. And I think that's one of the reasons why the miscasting of Jeon Yeo-bin and An Hyo-sup is so egregious, because he doesn't have the acting chops to play the roles that he needs to play. He doesn't suit. I'm sorry, he doesn't.
Gonna get us canceled.
Sorry, you can cancel me. I mean, I don't think that's something to be canceled over, but like, I know people really love him, but I love him too. But I don't think he's the right person for this role.
But he hasn't been the right person for any of the main lead roles he's taken on, except for Business Proposal, where he just had to play a cardboard business guy, which worked for that character. But he plays that character in every adult male role he has. What happened to the boy from 30 or 17?
I don't know. It makes me
understand.
so sad, because he was perfect in that. I don't know. I'm sad for An Hyo-sup. I think he got male lead status too quickly in his career. And he didn't have a chance to properly develop as an actor,
Yeah. He did Abyss, and then everything went downhill as far as, the way he did characters after that.
Yeah.
Every character since then has been the character he played in Abyss, basically.
I think he can only play one character, which is okay in some dramas. Like, I liked him. I've watched like all 3 seasons of Dr. Romantic, and I think he was fine in there. Like, he doesn't have to play
I'm so sorry. You're right. You're right. He was good in Doctor Romantic, but I don't know why I didn't remember
Yeah.
that character, because all his other characters are just like pressing in on my head. He was really good in season 2, and he was pretty good in season 3
Yeah.
too. But
But like
yeah,
also, I watched season 3 pretty recently, and like in specific scenes of A Time Called You, I was like, oh my god, that's Dr. Sojin. Like I couldn't because he always plays his characters the same way. I just like can only see him, and especially in a drama like this where you have to play multiple people, multiple ages, times, like. It's just not really working. Like, I feel like he doesn't work in the high school timeline. He doesn't work in the old man timeline. Like, don't even.
he especially doesn't work in the old man
Absolutely
timeline.
not.
I mean, he's not even,
Oh my god. I was
like-
like, they just. It was so bad.
what was that wig?
Almost.
Like, I never complained about wigs, but what was that wig?
Oh my gosh, I sent a tweet to Annie. It's like,
What was the tweet? Now you have to explain it.
they were like, oh, doesn't he look like the second lead in a Sagok who's like the bodyguard? It's that kind of wig.
Yeah, that's exactly. You're absolutely right. I have seen exactly that Sagok.
Yep.
There have been several of these.
Saguk bodyguard second lead hair. That's what it is. Even the facial hair is the same.
Yeah.
He just has a
And it
cane instead of
doesn't
sword.
really work to make him look old, so I don't know why they decided to do that.
It's just also like they show you a few scenes between the couple and those are supposed to make you really feel how sad she is and how great they were together, and it's so generic and it has no emotion and they have no chemistry and you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
So something that I wanted to talk about before we move into the spoiler section is something that Ripgal tweeted about. So when people say to watch it as its own, I find it impossible. I tried to be as objective as possible, but even that, the performances, the overall direction just didn't click for me. The cast delivered the emotions, but they did not connect. Now, what she's talking about here about being asked to judge A Time Called You as a standalone is something I've seen on Twitter a lot in the last couple of days, where a lot of us Sood fans come in and like, it's not that great, why? And then you have a few people going like, but judge it on its own merits. And I understand like that comes from a good place, like good intentions and
Does
stuff.
it
But
always?
guys, it's, I mean, I'm willing to be positive, but it's kind of like saying, somebody's created a remix, so therefore now forget the original song. You are not allowed to judge the remix
Yeah.
in comparison to the original song. Like, you wouldn't say that. Why are you asking?
Also,
what?
there is. I understand the people who are sincerely saying that, and I saw this too. I was reading some My Drama List reviews because I wanted to also get other people's opinions and people who haven't watched the original maybe just to see. And like, I do understand where that's coming from, but also when you are remaking something that has already been made, you already
popular.
have, and that is so well loved, you have, not only do you have the original material already available to you, so you're not coming up with something original, okay? Like, so you already have this thing that exists. And especially if it's something that has been pretty recent, still in people's memories, there's no way that you can separate what you're making. I mean, you made the choice to make this 4 years after the original aired. Like, no one made them do that. So it's going to be there. And also, it's not something that would have ever existed on its own, right? Like you said about the remix, like it's not something that could have ever existed without the previous thing. Like the only reason that it's made is because the old one existed. So if you are doing, I mean, it just goes back to the question of adaptation, right? If like you're doing an adaptation, that is always going to be a derivative work in the context of the first work, and you have to justify it. And so, and I think like you can probably enjoy this on, as a story, because the plot, if you just hit the plot points, like someone who's coming to this for the first time can probably enjoy it because the story itself is so different. It's so interesting. It's so well plotted and it's interconnected in such an interesting way. So the story is a good story, but it's still an inferior version of the original story. Like, so you're kind of like coasting on the good parts without like, meaningfully adding anything and probably making it worse.
Basically, I can't think of a single thing that A Time Called You has added to the story that wasn't present in Someday or One Day, and it stood out to me. Not one scene. The one clip that is doing a lot of circling right now is, so there is a guest appearance by Rowan. So you have Anisop and Rowan in a scene together. I won't spoil more. And that's being hyped up as like this one, the scene that is just, it's an improvement on what happened in the original series. It's not though. And I beg your pardon, because I also originally thought, oh, maybe it was, but that's because I didn't finish watching the movie. So they released a movie version, and that is where this plotline has been taken from. So it was already there in the canon. They haven't added anything that I can be like, well, this justifies the existence of A Time Called You. You have brought in this one plot point, this one dynamic, this one scene that was an improvement on the original. So you've improved nothing. You've given us a worse product, and why?
Yeah. So I think we've ranted enough about this, but if you haven't seen Someday or One Day, before we go into spoilers, all three of us are in agreement on this. And Saya also agrees, even though she's not here. Please go and watch the Taiwanese drama Someday or One Day. You won't regret it. Even if episode 1 takes a little bit of time to get into it, like, please watch it. It's so good.
Yeah, ignore the office humor. It's really bad, but I promise you it is not going to make a comeback after the first episode.
Yeah, that was weird. That was strange.
Yeah, we started watching that and Api was like, what?
Zaynab was like, just give it like a couple episodes. I was like, okay, I trust you. But yeah, it's just one of those dramas that like stays with you for a long time. I can already tell, even though it hasn't been that long since I watched it, like you'll be thinking about it afterwards, which is not that common of an experience for me these days with dramas.
Yeah. It's also a drama that I couldn't, the way they tied up everything, like you can nitpick over, hey, this could have been different, that could have been different, but it's one of those rare time travel dramas where it's the thinking behind every thread was substantial enough that if you try to change one thing here, everything else will change. Like there would actually be a cascading effect. Like it feels tight and like it's its own unique whole. So you don't even want to mess with anything in the original drama. So, what gets to me is like the presumption of taking something so good and thinking you can make it better or even something that matches up to it. Like,
yeah,
then make it a shot by shot adaptation, man. Don't change a thing. Like, don't even.
I mean, the sad thing is that in many ways it is a shot-by-shot adaptation, but it just lacks that magic.
That makes it worse. That actually
I just think that this team fundamentally misunderstood what was good about the show, because even like, I mean, I just want to quickly mention this. All the promo materials spoiled like so much of the story. And this is a story where you should go in knowing nothing. Like, that's what makes it so good, because every episode, at the end of every episode, like you learn something new and it like completely changes your idea of what's happening. And then you're like, wait, what? And then you have a new theory, and then you watch another episode and something happens and you're like, wait, my theory is completely wrong. Like, then you have to completely Zaynab was watching this with me and she had already seen it, and I kept like saying things and she was just like, I can't talk because I already know what's gonna happen. And I was like, no, the fun is that we can speculate together.
Yeah, at the end of every episode I would ask her like, what do you think is gonna happen now? And it was kind of funny to hear like what you thought was gonna happen. And then
I was getting really like stressed because you couldn't respond to me.
Anisa watched it absolutely at the end, like right before we were going to record for Someday or One Day. So all of us had watched it before. And then Anisa came in with her text. Oh, I like this. What? No, not again. Oh, it's getting better. No, not again.
Yep.
That was fun. Okay, so before we transition into the spoilery section, one last tweet from Sim is reading, or at Simrata Tatkar. I haven't watched the original, yet something felt entirely off in ATCY. Like it's trying too hard to be something. While I love John Yubin, she is struggling here to connect with the viewer. The two main leads feel like fluff candy who do nothing to the plot.
Accurate.
And I feel the worst for John Yubin because Alice Co's character, like Alice Co was just. I love Greg Sue in the original, but Alice Co is just like living in my heart somewhere. It's such a great character, like both characters she played, and she did it so well. You felt the division between the two women, like their personalities. It just not just their body language, the intonation, everything felt organic and different. But the way John Yubin was directed, and like we said, we know this is not the performer's. Like it's not that she lacks anything as a performer. We have seen her do depressed characters with just like immense power. She's fantastic. Oh, we are in the spoilery section now, by the way. Dang, dang, dang. Sorry.
All right, let's get to spoilers.
When you have her play, so there are two characters that she's playing here, right? So one is what's her name here? Kwon Minju. One is Kwon Minju. The other one is Hanjani. Hanjani is the woman in the future, the younger version actually, who goes back in time after she's lost her partner. Suddenly something happens, she goes back in time and into the body of a woman who looks like her but lived in a different time period. That's 1998 in this case. And she goes in there and she finds herself next to a boy who looks so much like her boyfriend. But he's also not the same guy, different name, different age, an older version, so to speak, born like a decade before. So what's going on? And she is in the body of a girl who has always been very lonely and really just felt alienated from her surroundings. It's an interesting situation, especially because in the original drama, the Minju character, the one who was actually in, like, whose body it is in 98, you don't actually see too much of her life. Originally, you're focusing so much on the time traveler's perspective that you don't realize that is itself the story. The time traveler going back, taking over the body of this girl and changing her life is the story.
Yeah. You know, the main actress, the lead actress, is basically the anchor of this drama, and her being able to portray those two characters so differently that, like, there are some scenes where you just see this actress and without her even opening her mouth, you know which one of these two actors she's playing, which one of these two characters she's playing. And like Alice Go was so good in that role, and the way that they also, like, I guess the way she was directed or whatever magic happened on Someday or One Day, it's instantly recognizable who she is. And once you get to know both of them, you just know. Whether you're in 1998 or whatever time period, you can instantly tell. And yeah. I just didn't see that kind of differentiation between the characters in the K-drama version.
No, but what is worse, you kind of did see the differentiation, but that differentiation was, like, I think Zaynab said it, like on a stage play, like an amateur actor trying to show you that they're playing two different characters. So you have Minju walking in a very weird, like, marionette type of way. And it's, like, the difference is not organic. It's not two different people. It's like a zombie versus a living person. It's so it hits you on the face like with a brick.
Yeah, I think like the two kind of things that bothered me about Minju is that the Chenru character.
Yes.
So she was like, one, I feel like she was kind of playing like a caricature of, like, because Jun Yo-bin is not a high schooler, obviously, like, I feel like she was trying really hard to seem young. So like the voice, the way she was acting, kind of, so it was already kind of off, but then I also feel like the characterization of that character was off, in which she was just playing like a very shy, kind of awkward girl, whereas like Chenyeru's character is someone who is very depressed and like feels like she's alone in the world, and she's honestly like the other interactions that Minju's character has with other people, it's like she's invisible. But I feel like Chenyeru was not invisible. She was someone who was hated. People despised her. They disliked her because she was so like, there was just, I think somebody in the drama said this at some point, but like they were like, oh, you were just so hateable before. And like how you are now when she was playing Huang Yushin is so much better. And like that's kind of awful, but like that was the kind of character that you were supposed to see.
Very important to the plot.
Yeah.
So that you can't just get rid of that.
And also like there's another point in the original drama when like Chenyeru is playing Huang Yushin, but she's not, like, it's very convoluted drama. But basically, she's pretending to be one person when she's not that person. And, like, another character sees her walking and is able to tell, like, oh, wait, that's not the other girl, that's her. And I just feel like that was set up earlier in the drama by the way that she was walking and acting, and I just didn't see that in A Time Called You.
So they use this really subtle thing instead of, for instance, changing her gait. Like there was a change in gait between Chenyeru and
Huang Yushin.
Names. Yushin, right? Yeah. So between Chenyeru and Huang Yushin, there was a change in gait, as in Yushin would, she's a bubblier character. She walks fast. She walks in a determined way. Whereas Yunru is like walks slower. So it's not about one of them walking like their joints are aching all the time. It's not caricaturish like that. It's like two people with two different personalities shown through their body language, but also the use of earphones, the subtle use of earphones when she's walking, the way she blocks out the world, like the way Yunru blocks out the world when she's walking around the corridors of her school, because nobody wants to interact with her. She wants to just avoid looking at anyone, thinking of anyone. So she just has music playing in her. The use of music to differentiate the characters. It's
we forgot to mention this in the non-spoiler part, but this Korean song that is supposed to be like the Wubai song from the original is so lackluster. Oh, no. It's such a nothing, like mealy-mouthed nothing of a song. Like it doesn't have any impact. I don't care about it. I don't enjoy it here. Whereas the other one, you were like, oh my gosh. Every time you hear it, you're like, oh, and also you mentioned the earphones and the music. I wanted to bring this up. I was so annoyed when they give her the new Walkman as a present, and they were like, oh, your old one was looking so old, which clearly they just copied the dialogue, but like we've never seen her using a Walkman or headphones yet in this drama. They just like literally just copied the dialogue, and they didn't realize that, oh, she's supposed to have headphones this whole time, and it's like an essential part of her character. I was so annoyed. And the other thing that we noticed last night when we were watching it is that like when she hears the song in the Walkman in 2023, she doesn't recognize the song. But like that was their song. Like that's such an important part of the story. I don't. Oh yeah. God.
And I think they only play that song twice in the first two episodes. Like once at the very beginning of episode 1, and then once at the end of episode 2 when she time travels.
The sad thing is that song is so unmemorable. I heard it like some 10 times throughout A Time Called You. Each time it started playing, I was like, wait, is this the same song as the last one? I couldn't recognize it. So generic.
It's so generic. Even
at the very end, when the reset has happened, everybody's forgotten everything. And then this song starts playing somewhere, and Anhyosop pauses and starts listening to it. He's like, I feel like I've forgotten something important. I still couldn't recognize the song. I was like, wait, is it really the same song? Why is it so generic?
Since you mentioned the end, Paroma, tell us, because I have heard that this K-drama has a different ending than the Taiwanese version. So like, what did they change?
Okay, so what they changed was poignancy. There is no poignancy in the end. You have the last episode is exactly formatted the same way as Someday or One Day's last episode. until about the last 10 minutes. At which point, so you guys remember how Greg Sue's character is introduced to, like, at one point he just meets and has like a like day picnic with a tiny baby Alice Co character. Like, I don't remember the actress's name, like a teeny 5-year-old. And she's lost, so he puts her on her bicycle and they like wander around and he finds her place, and that he's playing hooky that day. That's part of his. And honestly, I could have missed it during my fast forwarding. It's perfectly possible. But if I missed it, it happened like within like a 5-minute portion in some episode. I didn't see that at all. Now, again,
So you're saying that at
fine,
the
we can
end is
completely
the
take that
first time
out.
that you see that. You don't see that day happen earlier in the show.
you don't see that at all, is what I'm saying. Like, there is no connecting that tissue. And again, this is one of those things that were kind of optional. You can cut it out, that's fine. But the original used that connection between, the older Greg Sue character and the younger Alice Co character. I'm just going to call them that because it's so confusing with all of the names. They show that the first meeting of the actual people of their actual age, in that, like the in a very sweet montage of like little girl lost, and he just helps her find her house, and she remembers this older brother who was so helpful and made her feel safe, and then grows up years later and then starts dating this completely other guy who also, because she saw him being kind to a little girl and was like, oh, he's exactly like that. It's like, it's one of those nostalgic moments. So I think they completely eradicated that, or if they kept it in, I honestly did not notice. But the connection to the final scene in Someday or One Day was that happens again. Like, he meets that lost little girl. But that's not here. Instead, what happens is, the cassette and the tape, like the Walkman is destroyed. Everything is erased. By the way, it takes so long for everything to be erased. Like, it goes on and on. They have like a clock evaporating and like a frame evaporating, and I'm like, evaporate faster. Like, it doesn't take this long. And then once everything is finally gone, so you have things reset. So in the olden times, you have
In the olden times.
Alice show. I mean, in the 90s, you have Yunru's K-drama version. Minju wakes up from her brief coma because she was in a car accident. And this is the time when in Yunru / Minju's body, the time traveling girl comes in. This is the point where things start changing, right? So she wakes up and she is herself. There is no one possessing her body. She wakes up and she's like, well, what happened? And then you have Junji, who's called Ingyu in the K-drama version. So you have Ingyu telling her, well, you were in a car accident. She's like, oh. And like, the entire scene is just so, like Zaynab said, it's a stage play. This is all a stage play. And then, she ends up, she's fine. She's absolutely fine. She remembers that one conversation, just like in the original drama, that she had with her time-traveling self, like the other time-traveling self who looked like her, where she was like, nobody can ask you to do more because we already know that you've been doing everything you can. Again, dialogue from the original, really great dialogue from the original. And that one line she says where she's like, it's not that you're not this sad because you're depressed and lonely. It's because you have so much hope for the world. And that is what is breaking your heart. And so she remembers that conversation when she wakes up. And so you have the scene in the park where she's sitting on a bench and Ingyu walks up to her and she's like, I was just thinking of this dream I had, and a different me said this to me. And maybe I was wrong all along. Maybe I'm not as alone as I thought I was. And this is where this is a K-drama version. And so this girl who's been so sad, so lonely, so isolated for so long, in the Taiwanese version, she starts healing, pondering these thoughts. But in this version, she looks at Ingyu and is like, now I see that I wasn't alone. There was somebody close to me all along.
My God.
And I'm like, Why? No! Subtext, text, good lord, why?
Yeah.
I like that in Someday they didn't do that. They didn't make Junji slash Ingyu's feelings predominant in her life. Like she never had a crush on him. She never felt that way for him. Something may happen between them in the future, but the drama doesn't say one way or the other. Just says
Right.
that she
And
doesn't
also,
feel that terrible anymore.
The
Yeah.
romance with a handsome guy is not going to cure your depression and suicidal thoughts. Like, that's not how it
In
works.
a K-drama, it always does.
Oh my god. That's
You just need someone really hot to come and tell you that you're not alone.
like the whole point of that extremely emotional and like horrifying and amazing scene in the original drama where he tries to stop her from jumping and she jumps anyway is he's like, I can see you, I've been here all along, I care about you, I love you, and she's like, but that's not helpful for me. Like, I don't love myself.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the whole point.
I will give John Yubin this one thing. This was one scene she was actually allowed to emote in. Like, I felt like throughout the drama, she was just given like conflicting instructions that she didn't know what to do with. So she was playing the safest, toned down level she could. But in this one scene, she was properly allowed to emote, and she is so good. Like, you can kind of see why she was cast in this role. And they kept the original, like, even though they did like K-drama tone changes where he, like, you can kind of see like him saying, like in Someday and One Day when Junji is like, but I care about you, I have always liked you, I see you so much. And you have Yunro just being like, you just pity me. And like she does not care about his feelings. He is not relevant. The thing is, in the way K-dramas usually do something, the underscore tells a lot of the story, like the music rising up. So when when Ingyu says the same thing, you see the drama being like, yes, this matters. His feelings matter. And even though you have Minju reacting the same way, she's like, you love me? No, you pity me. This is not, like she's saying the same things, but the music is like, but underline, his feelings do matter. So that was very annoying to me. But then again, like even though you have John Yubin's character saying all the same things and emoting so well, they kind of undid that in the final scene. Like, I know that for a lot of K-drama viewers, that is what the expectation is. Like, they want the threads tied a bit neater and clearer. They want that hope for romance more clearly emphasized. But I do think it undoes what, that previous emotional scene was trying to set up. But the final thing that changed is, like I said, Gresu and Alice goes like, their characters' original meeting was supposed to be like that lost day bicycle ride situation, which is referred back to at the end of the drama when they have both forgotten each other. But in this scenario, none of that happens. Instead, there is a time skip to 2011 where you have Ahn Hyosop being like a webtoon portal owner, and he is just going home one day and she's on the bus, and they look at each other and have like a moment of like, oh, he's cute, oh, she's cute, and he asks her, hey, are you Minju? You look like somebody I know. And she's like, no. And they awkwardly smile at each other. She gets off the bus. He follows her, and that's the end.
Why would he follow her in that situation?
I don't know. Like, to make it less weird, the drama goes back to that moment at the seaside, again, exactly as the original, where he's like, I will never forget you. And she's like, you will find me. And he's like, yes. And therefore, he starts stalking her, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know.
Is it Spider-Man? Like,
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does call out to her. He's just not quietly stalking her. So, she turns around, they look at each other, end scene.
Okay.
I would just run away at that point because this guy was following me back from the bus. I don't care how cute he is. It's late at night. This is just weird.
All right.
Okay, so
Any final
That is that. Yeah, the final point that I want to put to you guys is: did you notice the amount of de-aging filter they put on Anhyusop and also on John Yubin, but I think especially on Anhyusop? It became especially clear to me whenever he had scenes with Kang Hun, because they weren't putting that de-aging filter on Kang Hun. So whenever the two of them had like face-to-face scenes, it was ridiculous to me. And Anhyusop does have an expressive face when he does use expressions, so the de-aging filter was not helping.
He just looked blurry.
He looked really blurry. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I guess I didn't realize it was the de-aging, but I was like, the face blurring is so messy in this one. It was bad. There were also some scenes where it just looked like his face was just like caked with makeup.
Yeah, it looked like so much foundation.
Yeah.
But why?
No reason.
You're casting somebody who's 28 as an 18-year-old. Listen, we have Shah Rukh Khan at like 40 playing like 18-year-olds. We don't do this.
Yeah.
Or we didn't used to do this.
I mean, at a certain point, if you don't have Marvel level money to make it happen properly, just don't. Everybody knows how old this actor is. Like, just let the audience do the work, you know?
Yeah, let our imagination do the work. You don't have to do this.
All right. Okay, Zaynab, let's give you the final word before we end.
Okay. I would say just watch Someday or One Day instead. Yeah. I'm sorry. I really did try to give this drama, like, the casting was kind of like strike one, but like I was like, okay, maybe they can still make it work. The trailers were pretty not good, but I was like, okay, we can still try it. And I did try to go into it with an open mind. And like, I know we talked about this, but I was like, do you think like you would be following this story? Like, would this be good to you if we hadn't watched the other drama? And I mean, I guess I really can't tell, but I don't know. It's like, for me personally, I don't think I would have finished it either way. But I don't finish a lot of dramas, so maybe that's not the really the best gauge.
Yeah.
So Netflix is doing that thing that they always do, where as soon as they release a Netflix original K-drama, they make it trend in the top 10. And I'm going to say they make it trend in the top 10 because A, they are very opaque about their own viewership numbers. So, I'm going to be suspicious unless you actually are transparent about your numbers. And B, it starts trending immediately. People don't even know about it and it's trending. So, yeah, dude, there is like a lot of... it's sus. So they do the trending thing and that's fine. So you have a lot of people who didn't know about the drama suddenly being like, oh, now that it's on the trending page, they are aware of it, they start watching it. So you have quite a few people who don't know about the drama probably coming into it and watching. We are going to get their perspective more and more as, the week goes on. It just dropped, I think, Friday? Thursday?
Yeah.
It just
2
dropped
days
like a couple
ago,
of days back. 2 days ago, yeah. At this point, it's majority Someday or One Day viewers who went and like sorted out just to see what kind of mess.
I feel like that, or it's like hardcore Anhyosub, Jeonyeobin fans.
Yeah, of course, they would be there. And listen, if you like it, like I had somebody, like one of the tweets where they were like, is anybody who hasn't seen Someday or One Day watching this and how do you feel about it? And so you had a couple of people being like, I'm unhealthily obsessed with it and it's so good. But it really was just a couple of people. Majority of people were like, I have watched Someday or One Day. Or being like, I tried watching the first couple of episodes, but it's just not that good. So that's my original impression of the conversations I've had. So let's see over the next week. I suppose we'll get a better idea of how people are actually receiving it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give them one thing. Again, very begrudgingly, because I still think the original did it better. When you had their college romance happening, they tried to like change the way the romance happens a little bit. And that was fine. I honestly expected them to do that because that is where K-dramas thrive, like the whole college romance side of things. But somehow, managed to sap all chemistry out of these two. I don't know how they did that. They are so pretty. Like, Jeon Yeo-bin is an excellent actor. I I have to blame the director. And which is a weird thing to say because the director is Kim Jin-won, who has directed Just Between Lovers, which is one of Anisa
It was so
and
good.
my favorite dramas.
I don't understand. I don't understand. Well,
Oh,
So I don't get it either.
also another thing, because you mentioned the college, the high school part, that could have been set in 2023. When we were watching that, I was like, is this really supposed to be 1998? They're at the
It didn't
fancy
feel-
Yonsei campus.
They filmed it at Yonsei's, that beautiful campus with the ivy all along the front. I'm like, they're supposed to be going to this like school, like random public high school in a random town. They're not even supposed to be in the capital. Like
The way they like
Nobody was
shoehorned
replied
in.
1997.
Yeah.
seriously, I know.
He was like, "Oh, I heard Titanic was good. I was gonna go watch that." And
Okay.
so random.
So random. He's just like randomly walking around with a VHS tape in his hands. Because it's 1998, don't you know? Just in case you forgot, because the school uniforms look very updated. All right. Okay, let's end it there. Thanks for joining us, Zaynab.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Even though I'm like always so negative.
We'll have you back on to talk about a show that you really like
Okay.
next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We absolutely
I
have
promise
to.
I'm not always
yeah,
a hater. Just most of the time.
No, it's okay. We end up loving a lot of really trash dramas. It's good to have Zainab come and be like, that's a trash drama.
I also love a lot of trash dramas, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Really? Which trash drama do you like? Like any? Give
I
us one
really
example.
love My Hollow Love, which is also a Netflix original drama.
That is a trash drama.
I fully
tells the
acknowledge
truth.
it's a trash drama, but like, yeah, I think I've watched it like twice, maybe like 2.5 times. Yeah.
That's hilarious. All right, Paroma, where can people find us?
So people can find Dramas Over Flowers on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find us personally at,
I'm at Anisa Khalifa _ on Twitter.
and I am at the Drama Notes. And on Dramas Over Flowers is also on Instagram. Find us at Dramas Over Flowers _. You can also email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com.
And you can find our articles and blogs and things at our website. That's dramasoverflowers.net. And you can sign up for our newsletter. You can go to dramasoverflowers.substack.com or just click the link in the description below.
Okay, tune in next week for a spoilery deep dive into Someday or One Day with, special guest whom we have already spoiled. So come back.
Yes. Look for that wonderful conversation. Okay, thank you for joining us, Zaynab.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.